So for a dummy like me, what is like the end game here? Why are they bankrupting these small companies? What is the purpose of this?
I'm always afraid to answer this question.
It's to make money. They literally just suck everything.
I'm not asking you, Rick. I'm asking
right.
Tiffany.
Down on the strip where the neon glows, there's a little shop everybody knows, where history's bought and treasures are sold. Gold and silver, stories unfold. When the doors close and the lights dim low, Rick and Sean kick back, friends they get to know. Gold and silver by day, but at night, my friend, Pawn After Dark is where the stories and laughter never end.
Welcome to Pawn After Dark. Today we have Tiffany Cianci. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Say that name 3 times fast.
Another dad joke failed.
All right, I tried.
I mean, for what it's worth, nobody can say it.
Yeah. So we met at the inaugural ball.
We did. I was there as a member of the press.
Yes, I was there with my fiance and my business partner, Tracy. And it's because of Tracy you're here.
Yep.
So how'd you get the invite to the ball?
So I was a regular on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s podcast. He's been on my podcast a few times because he's very passionate about private equity and combating private equity. And I ended up in a lot of the circles that were around all of the political campaigns last year. I attended the Libertarian National Convention, the Independent National Convention, and I ended up getting invited as a member of the new media, which I was very excited to be a member of the new media because I regularly interview politicians on every side of the aisle and right in the middle on my live TikTok show. It's called TikTok Town Hall. And
That's really, really cool.
That's how I got
As far as
there.
politicians nowadays, people really got to, Democrats and Republicans can like each other again. They really, really can. This whole idea of like, if you voted for this person, I don't like you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm old enough to remember like Democrats and Republicans could be friends and hang out and everything else like this. And this whole craziness really has got to end.
Back in 2012 here in Vegas, everyone, every bar, every restaurant had an election night party, and you'd walk in and pick up red or blue or purple, and we would have like cocktails that were themed and food that was themed. We had them at all the restaurants in the hotel I worked in. You can't do that anymore. Can you imagine doing that now?
Oh, I know.
Can you imagine? But we need to bring it back. We need to be
Yes.
able to have fun and commiserate, and you know that's how we learn from each other instead of the divide doesn't work.
You know, like First Amendment, you know what I mean? You know what? Everybody's got their opinion. Okay, you might not like their opinion, but they can still be friends.
Yep. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. If you look at my X channel, it has said free speech advocate. 13 years it said free speech advocate. I'll fight for your right to disagree with me.
A little bit of your backstory. How do you go from being a mother with a toddler daycare into taking on big equity firms? I mean, how does this even happen?
That was a very complex question that came really fast. The hard way. I don't know. There's no easy way to do that. I started off as a Las Vegas girl that moved to the East Coast. I was working in hospitality like everyone in Las Vegas pretty much does. And I put my husband through law school. He worked in hospitality too. And he got a great job as a lawyer and told me I could buy a business and settle down, stop traveling, be with my kids. So I bought a business I could take my kids to work with called The Little Gym. And
Little Gym.
The Little Gym.
Okay.
So a little kids play gym that I could bring my kids to work with. I had a dance background. I thought I can do that. I'm great with kids. I grew up in a house with like 18 kids. I can do that. No problem. And it was good. I was really good at it. And I loved it. I loved settling down. I loved not traveling anymore. And then COVID happened. We got shut down. And after that, a private equity firm was able to wage like this huge hostile takeover of our entire brand, our franchise brand. And I had the unfortunate honor of being the president of our union when that happened. And they wanted the union gone. And so they came pretty quickly for me to terrorize all the other union members, and they started suing me. They took my business, and they've been doing it ever since, and I've been fighting like hell ever since.
Okay, so all the people watching, they got to know what a private equity firm is. And a private equity firm, generally, not all of them, but most of them are Satan.
That's a good way to describe it.
They basically, have multi-million-dollar investors. They put so much money into a private equity fund, and there's these people who run them, and it's basically do whatever you can to make us money, no matter what you do, the people you deal with, it doesn't matter, anything else like that. And I might get assassinated for this, but I really believe like BlackRock, the biggest one there is the most evil corporation on the planet.
I agree with you.
Yeah. No,
They're right at the top.
Yeah. And so they just used lawfare and destroyed you.
They've been using lawfare over and over and over again, literally for the last 3 years now, straight. They've sued me in multiple jurisdictions. They've terrorized my family, my employees, my coworkers, any franchisees that backed me. And we weren't like the first union they did this to. They did it to all the companies they bought before us. There were 6 back to back, and they just broke them up one after another by targeting the board members of their franchisee associations or their unions. And they've done it over and over again since. They just got out of a big litigation with like 240 other small businesses. I just didn't roll over.
Yeah. Most people don't realize when a big if you get sued, especially by a big corporation, you have all these lawyers, they start demanding all this paperwork, and then you go to deposition after deposition. So when you go to a deposition, you literally got to sit and another lawyer ask you questions for 8 hours, but you got to pay your lawyer for 8 hours. And you're lucky if you'll find a lawyer for $300 an hour, and then it's this fee and this court fee, and it just before you know it, you have $100,000 in
We're
legal
over
fees.
12 million.
Yeah, and
in this case.
And the big companies, they have all the money in the world. They just hope you'll fold
Yeah.
or go bankrupt in the process.
That's what they hoped. They absolutely wanted to bankrupt us.
So it sounds like these private equity firms are like crippling small businesses, or are they taking them
They're
over?
pirates.
Are they ruining the economy? I mean, what's your take on that there?
So actually I had a video that went really viral like last month because I figured out something that I thought other economists knew, other people were talking about. I didn't think I was the first one, but I was trying to figure out how Joann's craft stores went out of business. Joann's, you guys understand craft people. Crafters don't buy stuff online. We want to touch it. We want to touch fabric. We want to touch yarn. We want to know what we're working with. And so I was trying to figure out how they got bankrupted by the private equity firms that had been trading them like Pokemon cards from private equity firm to private equity firm. And I did this deep dive and figured out that all of these private equity firms have not just been bankrupting small businesses or acquiring small businesses or trading small businesses. They've been doing all of it with adjustable rate debt. And they've been stacking it on top of all of these small businesses, big businesses, giant corporations. And over the last 3 years, as these interest rates have gone up, the businesses, no matter how well they're doing, can't sustain it, and they crumble because so much wealth has already been strip mined out of them. It's really dangerous to talk about private equity as all private equity is bad, because if your mom loans you money to buy a business, that's private equity technically. Okay. Pirate private equity is really what we're talking about. It's what Rick's talking about. It's what I was talking about. Pirate style private equity are these big firms that borrow money from banks. They don't even use their own money to buy corporations, small and large. And then they literally systematically strip mine wealth out of them over and over and over again. And then they trade them every few years. 3 years is the average. And then the next company needs to strip more out and stack more debt on it. And then the next company needs to strip more out and stack more on. And each one of them hopes they're not going to be the one that gets stuck with the hot potato when it eventually crumbles, but it will eventually crumble. And it's really, really hard to look at what used to be amazing small business and middle class and see it going this way.
Yeah, because it's really hard for the government to come along. I mean, the government needs to come along, but one of the arguments is it's really hard to, basically regulate, make laws on the morality of these companies. And but we're talking about BlackRock. I mean, you take BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. They can completely control the Dow Jones Industrial Average, NASDAQ, the S&P 500. They control almost all those companies because, like I said, I really hate them.
All of them.
I love that you're here because I could just bitch about these people all day long. So
I mean, I got time. Let's do it.
So have you noticed any recurring strategies that they use to come in and take advantage of these smaller businesses?
So really, first of all, what he just said is BlackRock controls everything. They also control all of our politicians. BlackRock isn't technically a private equity firm. They have all their investments in private equity firms. Blackstone is a private equity firm. State Street, Vanguard, private equity firms. And they also control all of our politicians. And one of the ways they do that, a lot of people don't know, is that the entire federal pension, the president's pension, the senators' pensions, the representative pensions, all their staffers' pensions, the garbage men that work for them's pensions, every staffer they have's pensions. 81% is held by BlackRock and 19% is held by State Street. They couldn't regulate them if they wanted to because it would hurt their own future. They wouldn't. But when it comes to strategies, there's a litany of evil strategies they employ.
Okay, so when they take care of all those pension funds, they take those pension funds, they invest them in the stock market, they invest them in businesses, all these different things, okay? But you got this, like say you got the state of California's pension fund, okay? They go, let's go to BlackRock. They're the biggest. They can handle this giant fund and everything. So BlackRock slides a piece of paper over to the people taking care of the pension fund, and they go sign right here. And in the little print there that says BlackRock has the voting rights to all the shares. So even though you're a pensioner and they're investing your money in some company, you don't like that company's doing, as a regular stock investor, you get a statement, you can vote, to get rid of the board of directors or anything like that. But no, you can't do that now. State Street, BlackRock, all these people, they now have all the voting rights of these companies. So they basically elect their own board of directors. They also tell these small companies, these are the political donations you're going to do that are going to take care that and these are politicians that are going to vote to make sure we stay in business, we can continue with our monopoly.
That's absolutely what they do. I like highbrow big companies that are publicly traded. For small businesses, so about just before COVID actually, and during COVID, there was a huge meeting in Sun Valley, Idaho, of all of the private equity heads, and they call it Billionaire Bunker, Idaho. And they had a meeting because they were worried about what they believed was an oncoming economic downturn. All right. And they wanted to figure out what they needed to acquire to make sure that they wouldn't suffer, their investments wouldn't suffer, they would continue to generate wealth. And they deemed it necessary to invest in things that people would pay for no matter what. No matter what. If they didn't have the money, they would find it. If they couldn't find it, they would borrow it. If they couldn't borrow it, they would steal it. I literally mean it. That was in the manifest of their entire agenda, is they wanted to make sure that whatever they bought next, we would pay for no matter what. And so they started targeting what was largely small businesses. There was an analysis that was done. There's an analysis every year that's done in the US that talks about what faith we have in our institutions. You're looking at Congress, 8%, right? If you look at somebody that's been serving a long time, maybe you get 13% sometimes. You look at big corporations, 5 to 6%. You look at small businesses, and they knew this, 81%. That's how much we trust them. And so they said they wanted to target businesses that no matter what we would pay for, and businesses that they could present as small businesses. And they started targeting large swaths of whole industries. So they started buying up daycare centers en masse. They started buying up nursing homes en masse. They started buying up veterinary care en masse. They started buying up pediatricians and pediatric emergency rooms en masse. They started buying up things for home services, because you will take care of your home if you have to. You're not going to let that investment fall by the wayside. So they started investing in roofing companies, HVAC companies, plumbing companies. But when they buy them, a lot of times these guys don't want to sell to private equity, so they send a broker that looks like an everyday Joe that's buying their business and then passes it off the next day. And buried deep in those contracts is a name, image, and likeness approval that says they get to keep using the name, image, and likeness of the former owners, so they can pass off that business as a small business. Right here in the Southwest, I talk about them all the time. There's a place called Champions Group. It's bought up dozens and dozens and dozens of HVAC companies, big ones. We're sending out 30, 40 trucks. And they kept the owners' pictures, they kept the names, they kept everything, but they unified software across all the HVAC companies, so that no matter who you call, you're getting the same bid, and it's 3 times what it should be. But you can't find anyone else. It's a monopoly in this region, right? And they present it as a small business, and then they say, don't worry, you can't afford the 3 times price. Just, we'll finance it for you, because they bought that too. They bought the finance company too. It's happening everywhere.
Okay, yeah, and if you're in Las Vegas and you have a house and the AC unit's gone out in the middle of summer and you have kids, it's okay. You have to have air conditioning in this town. It's like being in Chicago in the winter. You have to have heat.
Yep.
I mean, if it's 110 degrees outside, people will get sick. People, elder people will die. And when they slide that in front of you, just sign here.
Yep.
And I mean, if you don't pay, they can put a lien against your house.
And small businesses are getting exploited too, because they can't operate without air conditioning. Lots of small businesses aren't legally allowed to operate if they have any kind of health department oversight. they have to have it operating. And so they're getting exploited with even bigger fees, even bigger charges. And there's lots of these like umbrellas.
Yeah.
So do you think there's anything we can do as a society? I mean, I know you've spoke in front of Congress and many other things. Have you maybe thought of any solutions that could help stop this? It sounds like a big problem to me.
It's a huge, I mean, I know it's a huge problem. Right now, like just in your world, there's a bunch of private equity firms targeting pawn shops all across the Midwest right now. They're either acquiring them because they believe it's going to survive economic downturns, because pawn shops generally do, or they're targeting the real estate that they're built on so they can exploit the pawn shops, or they're doing both. They'll buy up the pawn shop, sell themselves back the land, and then lease it back to themselves at high rates. And everybody suffers, right? The pawn shop suffers. The people that need to sell stuff suffer because they're not getting the same rates.
Yeah, the Ray Kroc model.
Yep.
Yep. Ray Kroc started McDonald's. Okay.
I have a career at McDonald's. That's where I started. I know all about Ray Kroc.
No, but Ray Kroc, what he did was he soon they started, he realized he really couldn't control the franchise owners that well. Okay, and then he realized, if I own the land they sit on, they have to do whatever the hell I tell them, or I'll evict them.
Yep.
Okay, and so almost every, his model was, I'll buy the land in the building, you lease it from me, and then if you don't follow every single thing in that franchise contract, you'll lose your entire investment. So, but buying up, the idea of buying up pawn shops, land, as a landlord, and then raising the rent. I mean, that's tough because certain businesses, like, you take like liquor stores, pawn shops, and there's some other businesses, they just can't get up and leave. There is like massive zoning laws. A lot of the times, some towns, it's like, this area of town can have a pawn shop, this area can't. Yeah. And if they raise the rent, there's nothing they can do.
Yep. They have nowhere to go. They don't have anywhere they can pivot, and they'll pay whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I'm a free enterprise guy. I believe in the free market and everything like that. But when you concentrate so much money in these companies, okay, it no longer becomes a free market. Okay, it's monopolies. Okay, and we used to actually do something about monopolies.
Yeah, we sure
That's
did.
why we got rid of Standard Oil. That's why AT&T broke up. And I mean, it's getting to a point in this country where there's so many. The power of everything is in such few hands, and everybody's afraid of them. And the way the political system works, okay, it's like the drug industry. None of the news, none of the mainstream media will say anything about them because they get half their revenue from drug ads.
Yep, they sure do. They sure do. When you look at the concentration of power, the concentration of wealth in private equity firms, they're creating micro monopolies. They're stopping just short of what would be a national monopoly. A lot of people don't know that our antitrust laws are woefully outdated. They were created in the 1930s, almost all of them. And they were created at a time where no one conceived of a world where digital content would be free. And so most of them are centered around price fixing for national consumers. It has to be like nationwide. Nobody ever conceived of a micro monopoly or a monopoly in an entire region or an entire industry. It's very difficult to enforce antitrust laws against companies like Meta or Google because they provide a product for free to the consumer. No one ever conceived in those laws that they could fix prices for small businesses by charging whatever they want for ads. And that's the only place ads work now. There are so many types of monopolies that are existing because there is so much concentration of wealth in our country right now. And laws used to do something about this. The FTC over the last several years has really been trying. They've been trying to find ways to use existing laws in new ways, like the Robinson-Patman Act. I've testified before the FTC a lot. I've worked with the FTC a lot. But the laws have to be updated, and that would require our Congress to actually get together and do something. It's not easy to update a law, and it's really hard when you're being paid not to.
Yes.
And they are being paid not to, and in large quantities.
No, but I see. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I am that nerd, and I get something gets in my head, so I just start doing a deep dive on it and everything like that. But there are all these little monopolies, and some of them they just sort of creep in. I mean, like drug companies now. I mean, not drug. Excuse me, health insurance companies. now are farming out the manufacturing of medications. And if you have a particular health insurance, okay, that's the brand you have to get. And they're just, and then they go, and then they, it's just, and then they charge you more and more, and they make more. They're just figuring out more. There's certain companies. First off, health insurance companies, I think they need to be a little bit more regulated because they can be evil also. I could go on stories.
It's hard to be a free market person that suddenly realizes we need more regulations, right? Because I am a free market person.
I mean, I think there's a lot of regulation that has to go away, but when you have, like I said, BlackRock and all them, okay, they have too much power. If I have my pension fund, and why is these people, and I live in Vegas, okay, and I got a certain set of values, why would no one ever even asking me makes it so like these guys in a high rise in New York are going to figure out, well, we'll vote for you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the equivalent of like, oh, we're going to elect a new president, but you're not smart enough to vote for yourself. We have to vote for you. That's the equivalent.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a monopoly. Something has to be done. The Sherman Trust Act, that was, I think, the first
Sherman
anti-monopoly act, and that's what brought down Rockefeller. Just something. There's some companies out there that have just gotten too big. When you have companies that are worth, literally trillions of dollars now.
There's 11 trillion in private equity right now. 11 trillion in the United States.
And so these laws just
trillion.
aren't updated enough to stop this from happening?
They're not. They were really literally finitely conceived of price fixing and collusion for consumers. And so they're finding and skirting ways around that by making things free for consumers or saying we're not colluding, it's just what the market demands. And the way that you had to enforce it had to meet certain metrics because we didn't conceive of a digital world. We didn't conceive of a not brick and mortar world. We didn't conceive of a world where a regional monopoly would be enough to control prices for large swaths of the American economy. They have to be updated. There's something going on right now. President Trump is talking about closing the carried interest loophole, which is one of the ways that it's one of the things.
So what is that? I'm not familiar with that.
So the carried interest loophole is a loophole that is largely beneficial to private equity. It's one of the things that draws all of the billionaires to private equity as an investment mechanism. Mm-hmm. It's a loophole that allows them to pay less than half the taxes of anyone else making money in another investment.
Okay, well, it's like this. Okay, so everything's a capital gain. So so when you pay income taxes, there's two main income taxes. Okay, your income from working, your business, everything else like that. Okay, and then there's capital gains. That's for investments you make in something and you don't cash out for over a year after you bought it. Okay, that's basically half of what regular income tax is. Somehow or the other, all these hedge funds, no matter what it is, they only have to pay the capital gains rate. Okay, and then the people working, then the actual company, the hedge fund, all the profits they make off this, for the percentage they take from the people's profits, they only have to pay the capital gains rate and not pay regular income tax. It's BS.
How do I get in on that boat?
Yeah, I wish I could.
You could sell your soul. It seems to work for them.
I don't want to do that.
It seems to work. Yeah, it seems to be the way.
I'm a pretty moral person, you know what I mean? And it's really hard in the world to stay that way.
It's so hard.
I'm a small business. I own multiple businesses and stuff like that. And literally telling me, well, you got to give this politician money. I'm going I can't do it.
Yeah.
I know it'll be good. But deep down, I just can't do it. It's tough. And like you said, there's $11 trillion in private equity, plus $20 trillion in pension funds that are controlled. Okay, so 80% of the stock market is controlled by so few people. It is scary. Okay, and that all trickles down because when you have a small company that you're a small manufacturing company, you're basically, a lot of times your all your supplies, your materials and everything come from companies that now have a monopoly on that item and you're paying more. It goes on and on and on.
That's one of the things the FTC has been trying to work on. Alvaro Bedoya's team specifically was working heavy on the Robinson-Patman Act. They believed it could be used in a more modern way. The Robinson-Patman Act is an act that's designed to stop collusion against smaller corporations, where big companies are able to negotiate extremely good deals on everything they need by blocking out small companies and negotiating that the smaller companies have to pay more and putting all the small businesses out of business. That's something that's happening in real time all across America. There's so many ways that private equity is bankrupting. 1, by buying the companies. 2, by buying the land companies are on. 3, by forcing out companies that compete with them. 4, by acquiring or getting all of their systems throughout their supply chain and then exploiting it for anyone else that relied on that supply chain. There's so many ways the consolidation is happening.
So for a dummy like me, what is the end game here? Why are they bankrupting these small companies? What is the purpose of this?
I'm always afraid to answer this question.
It's to make money. They literally just suck everything.
I'm not asking you, Rick. I'm asking
Okay, right.
Tiffany.
Okay. The end game is the game of Monopoly. My 7-year-old son, I actually had a viral video because there was an ad for Monopoly on TV, and I was talking about private equity at the same time, and my son goes, "That's like the Monopoly game, Mom." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "It was a warning. It wasn't a game. It was supposed to be a warning," which I'm sure you guys know this. And I said, "What do you mean, buddy?" And he goes, "Well, when somebody has all the money, no one else has any of the money. When someone owns everything, everyone else owns nothing. They rent and they're happy." And that was my 7-year-old son. That's how much he's been impacted by what's happened to our family. Okay? But the reality is that in this country, first of all, going back to a landmark court case, Dodge versus Ford, which I talk about all the time. Ford was a company. We're not going to talk about the ethics of Ford. We are going to talk about the commitment to the employees in the region and the small business owners around them. Ford wanted to enrich the region to build a workforce that was happy. And so he started paying his workers more. He started investing in small businesses in the area. He started investing in roads and infrastructure. And Dodge didn't like it because people were leaving him to go to work for Ford. So the Dodge brothers sued in a landmark case that went all the way to the top of the court system and said, "You are not allowed to pay more. You are not allowed to invest in infrastructure. You have to serve your shareholders. You're not allowed to do this." And they ruled that was correct. And that has been the governing law in this country ever since for publicly traded or any company that has any kind of shares. And ever since it was necessary to serve your shareholder over your employees, your community, your industry, even your country, the moment we said that the shareholders mattered above all else, that the stock price mattered above all else, everything else went by the wayside. The thing about capitalism is that capitalism is a very perfect mathematical equation. It's as much productivity as you can get, infinite growth. You've got limited resources, but it wants as much productivity as possible, as much money generation as possible, with as little output as possible financially. That is the mechanism. That is capitalism. Mm-hmm. And as that goes, if you follow that to an eventuality, it's slavery is the most perfect example of what it would be, is infinite output with no resources output in a labor force. Nobody wants that, okay? Which is why it takes regulation in at least some regard to keep the human condition of infinite greed at bay and to make sure that we don't go to the more evil way that could create horrible outcomes. And it takes regulation, whether we like regulation or not. It requires at least some. Private equity in the 70s was kept at bay. Start going all the way back to Carter. There were guardrails. You couldn't have more than 35 investors. And you couldn't have more than $10 million at play. Anything more than that, you had to report to the SEC. The government had to see it. They had to know you were doing the right thing. They had to know that you had the right liquidity. They had to know you weren't screwing over anybody. No Ponzi schemes. All those things had to happen. It was a little bit diminished under Reagan. Clinton took almost all the guardrails off. At that point, it was up to 1,000 investors, unlimited money. But he did it with a bipartisan Congress, not a one-party problem. And then we get up to Obama. All the guardrails came off. Again, bipartisan agreement in Congress because they were all being paid to do it, right? And then we come to now, and we're at a point where there are no more guardrails, and we've reached a point where the wealth consolidation is so massive, it's so egregious, that if we don't put some of the guardrails back on, there's not really a way for anything else to rise. The monopolies, you can look at tech monopolies, you can look at communications monopolies, you can look at streaming monopolies. You can look at supply chain monopolies. They're everywhere. You can look. I talked about Joann's at the beginning of this. That's what started my big video a few weeks ago. Joann's is gone. And that means that Michael's and Hobby Lobby are the only two craft companies left. And if the game of Monopoly actually plays out the way it should, Michael's will go next because they have been owned by private equity and taken back public and brought private. And Hobby Lobby will be the one that wins because they don't believe in debt. And they've never taken on debt. And they've never overexpanded. And they don't allow other investors in. So if there's a game, it doesn't matter how you feel about them. If there's a game of Monopoly and we're allowing this much consolidation, they've never tried to be a monopoly. Yeah. But if the game plays out the way it should, Hobby Lobby will win. A lot of people don't like to hear that. Some people love to hear that, right? But consolidation in every industry is where we're at. Yeah. And it's really dangerous. There are guardrails we can put back on, but it's going to require a lot of work by the people to demand it.
So you're big on TikTok, and you talk a lot about this on TikTok. Do you try to give people like some direction into how we can put these guardrails back on?
Yeah, I do. I regularly give them tasks. I have a very dedicated audience that is ambitiously dedicated to the belief that we still have time to fix it. We're running out, but they believe it. And they
to
turn
fix
out.
it, what do we do? Just, go complain to Congress? I mean, it seems
work.
like that's not going to work, right?
I mean, there's a certain level of complaint that might work, but
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like you need to cap private equity and the number of investors. Okay, you need BlackRock, companies like that. They just need to be broken up. That's too much power for one company to have. So you got Larry Fink, right?
Yep, Larry Fink.
He's the CEO. Too much power.
Too much.
You have one guy controlling trillions and trillions of dollars worth of money, and basically, and through that, it's not even his money. It's other people's money. He's controlling all these different companies that.
He controls the equivalent of the world's fourth largest economy.
Really?
If you broke it down strangely, U.S. is 1, China 2, California would be 3, shockingly enough by itself, and then you would have BlackRock. That's how much he controls.
That's pretty massive.
They're too big. It needs to be broken up. You cannot have that many people taking, like literally you need California's pension fund. They need to chop the amount in 10 different spots. 10 different companies need to take care of it. Okay, all the voting rights need to go back to the people contributing. These are things that, it's simple rules. Okay, but once again, you have BlackRock. I didn't know it was the 4th largest economy in the world. Okay,
scary, right?
Yeah, directs all these companies to pay. So it looks like these politicians are getting a little bit from this guy, a little bit from this guy, a little bit to this political action committee and everything. But in the end, it all comes from one guy.
And
it's pretty scary.
The private equity firm that I'm fighting in court is Seidler Private Equity. They own the Padres. They own, and they're building little monopolies. They're buying up a bunch of sports companies like Rawlings, and they're buying up a bunch of kids companies like Up a Baby and Aiden and Aeneas and Frida. These are companies that all serve kids, and they bought up Unleashed Brands, the company that I'm actually in litigation with. These companies are building little micro monopolies, and we don't have laws that can account for that right now. We need to close the carried interest loophole. Trump said when Trump first said he wanted to do it, I actually thought he was just trying to raise some money. I'm going to be honest. I thought he was trying to get somebody coming in because BlackRock just bought both sides of the Panama Canal, which is terrifying, right?
I didn't
hear about that. They bought both in the new deal we have in the Panama Canal. BlackRock was able to buy both sides of the shipping yards, so nobody can pass through it without going through BlackRock on both sides now. That should terrify everyone. Everyone. We should be horrified. But then you have these smaller firms that are also building mini monopolies, and they're able to take out the small businesses around them, or they're acquiring all the small businesses. Without small businesses, we don't create jobs. People don't realize that. 99.8% of all jobs created in the United States in the last 25 years were created by small businesses, because big businesses eliminate jobs. They create efficiency. They create more productivity with less economic input, because that's what capitalism does. And they're good at it. Small businesses, they create almost all the jobs, almost everything. If we eliminate them, we don't have a mechanism to continue to create wealth in this country. But we are eliminating them. And you asked me what the end game is. The end game of monopoly is always the end game of monopoly. The investors at the top will be fine. They're building bunkers and buying robot dogs. They will move on to the next country where they can start over again. And we will be left here with whatever is left. They don't care about what happens here. They're not allowed to. They have to serve the shareholders. They don't have to care what happens here or what's left here. That's our regulators' job. That's our job to demand of our regulators, is to stop those inclinations. Because I was a free market. I was as close to a like rigorous libertarian as you could be most of my adult life. I was like, no regulations, until I realized even the most staunch libertarians that sit down with me after we talk are like, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this.
Well, no, I mean, I really believe in capitalism. I
Yeah.
think it's what made this a country so
Yes.
amazing. But the problem, but I mean, it's the reason why, back, Teddy Roosevelt started, like, we need to, he was the trust buster, okay? But somehow or the other, over the years, we just basically have let, and there's no way you can argue that these are not monopolies.
Nope,
okay?
absolutely not.
Okay? I mean, Google is a monopoly.
This is filming in May, or this is airing in May, but right now is they're being busted today. Today's April 15th.
Oh, really?
Today's April 15th, and they lost a litigation on a monopoly bust, and their like damages part of the trial, their penalty part is happening 14th, 15th, 16th right now. So by the time this airs, we'll know. But the FTC and the DOJ are demanding that they divest of Chrome. They're demanding that they break up the company and that they're not allowed to make any more sweetheart deals with companies like Android and Apple anymore.
And so this will be good.
But it's only one.
Well, Meta's in a lawsuit right now, which probably could take a long time. Have you followed that at all? Do you think there's any leadway there that maybe Meta could be broken up?
I believe that most of these companies could, if we allowed the DOJ and the FTC to work the way they're supposed to. Politics keeps getting in the way. There are 5 agencies that are supposed to be bipartisan at all times or nonpartisan at all times. And what happens is usually there's like 5 or 7 people at the top. And with the administration, the person at the top changes. So it'll shift one or the other. So the FTC is always 2 Republican appointees, 2 Democrat appointees, and 1 at the top that is whoever the president wants there. And so it shifts 3 to 2 back and forth. And it's supposed to act in a nonpartisan way to make sure that this work keeps getting done. The one thing that I think Trump has made a huge mistake on, I'm just going to say it, is that he fired Alvaro Bedoya and Rebecca Slaughter. Those were the 2 people at the FTC that were leading all of these litigations. And J.D. Vance was a Lena Khan fan. Matt Gaetz, Lena Khan fan. Josh Hawley wanted all of this. There are conservatives that really liked this work that was being done. He let them go. They're suing to be reinstated right now. I hope they win. They were doing the work. They were the ones doing all the Robinson-Patman litigation. And they were also the ones that got the Google case across the finish line that Trump started in his first term. I feel like it was a political thing that was being demanded of him, and I really hope they win the lawsuit and they get put back in there. But we need to stop letting politics get in the way of people. If the conservatives want to keep this populist coalition they're building, they're going to have to start serving the working class. And it's going to take this.
Well, I mean, with me, I really want. I mean, small business has too much regulation.
Yep.
It's more or less almost designed to make you fail and keep a bunch of bureaucrats in office.
Yep.
Okay. I hate the fact that, like, back in the day, back in the '80s, because I'm an old guy, you could literally go rent a building.
Yep.
Okay. Go down to city business license, and literally within a half hour, you would have your appointment for the fire department to come and inspect the next day, okay? And this, that, and that. Within 3 or 4 days, you can open your business as long as it wasn't some sort of restricted license like a pawn shop or a liquor store. But within 3 or good luck doing it in a couple months. And back in the day, small family sitting at the kitchen table, let's do it. They can't afford to do it now, okay? And then you have like I said, like like these giant hedge funds and things like that have all the money in the world and they don't care. They can do it. So you need to make it smaller for small businesses, because literally small business, capitalism, free enterprise, be able to do what you want to. When they say life, liberty, and
Pursuit of happiness.
And the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness was generally your profession.
That was our American dream, right? That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in the immortal words of Benjamin Franklin, you have the right to pursue you have the right to pursue happiness. It's up to you to catch it. But small business needs a break from regulation. And like I said, the BlackRocks, the giant hedge funds, they need to be reined in. And I hope Trump does something about it, because it's just they got a crushing weight. I mean, they're just bad. You know, there's too much power in one people's hands.
How do you even break a big company like BlackRock up at this point? It's so
no,
massive.
no,
like,
it's
who
easy.
comes in and can even afford to
So-
buy pieces of that out?
It's hard because we had big monopolies back when the last round of trust busting really took place. Nowhere near to the level we do now. I mean, but back then we had less industry, so that maybe by percentage it was similar. What happens is that the government orders you to break it up into multiple companies and sell off the pieces. That's the way it's supposed to work. We'll know if that happens to Google right now. They are being, one of the things that the DOJ is seeking is a divestment of many streams of their income and a breakup of some of their income streams.
Okay, it's like, I mean, there's certain things you can do. Like, you know, if you're a pension fund of a certain size, you need to have multiple multiple different managers of that. Okay, like I said, California. Let's make 10 different managers to break up this. Probably over $100 billion. I don't know the number. Okay, so let's have 10 different companies take care of that in California, and it can be done. It's not that hard. I mean, it's very, very simple. You pass a law.
Sounds hard to me.
It's not as hard as you would think. I mean, literally, you can go to court. I mean, the government could pass a law tomorrow. This is how large these incredibly huge companies can be, and they can break them up, especially if they're a monopoly.
One of the things that most people don't know, and I would love to embolden our citizenry to understand this, because we could get together and do something ourselves, is that the people that wrote the antitrust laws of the 30s believed that the antitrust laws were the only laws in our country that were so important to the long-term success, our ability to do anything as a nation to stay successful, to keep the American dream alive. They're the only law that has a civil and a criminal component that Americans can prosecute ourselves. Like, you can't go and prosecute somebody for trespassing with a criminal aspect yourself. You have to get a commissioner or a attorney general to do that for you. In America, we are allowed to enforce antitrust laws as people. We just don't have the money to fight these companies. That's it. But if we got together, we could. They don't want us talking about it, but we could.
So you just form a group, compile some money together, and go
We
battle
could.
these antitrust laws.
If they don't,
it sounds like a
it's
massive
an option.
undertaking. Yeah.
It's an option. It's not a good one. It's not the ideal one, but it's possible.
Okay, on a lighter note, what do we got here?
Those are hats that I
That's a hat, not a bouquet of
I
flowers?
think you're the only time I've ever been on a podcast in jeans. I saw all of your other episodes, and I was so scared to wear what I normally wear, but I wear almost all vintage clothing.
Yeah, I love vintage clothing. I wish you would have wore some.
If you guys ever have me back, I promise I will come in entirely in like 1953 to 58.
Oh, I definitely want to have you back, but we might have to.
And I'll wear like my 1960s
We
cowboy
might have to
hat.
dress
Love it.
Rick up in some vintage clothing
Love
too,
it.
so you feel
I would
comfortable.
love to do that
Yeah.
episode. These are some hats that I bought this week while I was here before I knew I was coming on. I had been to this really amazing little vintage clothing store called it's here in Vegas. It's called the Painted Ladies Vintage Clothing Shop. It's over in the Antique Mall of America.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it was there. And I grew up here. It's been there for 2 decades. I had no idea it was there.
You didn't know the mall, the antique mall was there?
No.
Oh, my
I don't know
goodness.
how. I mean, I lived on the other side
Yeah.
of town. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
When I lived here, we weren't so like easy to look
It's a
things
hidden
up.
little gym over there, right?
Yeah, right. There's so much, right? And I went in there and I bought it. I spent so much money. But like, I collect vintage hats. I wear a lot of vintage hats, and I wear huge skirts. And
So
that's
do
sort
you
of my
have an
thing.
outfit picked out for these hats, or are these more just like a kind of shelf piece that you're going to look
Oh
at?
no, I have plans. These are not. I don't have shelf pieces. I wear everything. I
That's
buy.
my kind of girl. I love
I
that.
wear
Yeah.
everything. I know you're a shoe guy, right?
So I don't do shoes so much anymore, but I did forever. But, as I grow up in age, I just don't want to wear the same thing over and over. But
Yeah.
I'm a huge vintage guy, or just thrift store in general.
love that.
Almost every pair of jeans I own is thrifted.
Same.
And probably 80% of my shirts are thrifted, except like if I get a plain one. So like, this is actually a friend of mine who makes this shirt, but he uses thrifted shirts to make these.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I'm a big thrifter. I'm a big vintage guy, and I love clothing.
We brought this up on another episode. I still don't know what the 730 is. Never mind.
So he's a Pokemon, and Pokemon are assigned numbers.
So this 730 is just the guy's birthday who makes
Oh.
the brand.
All right.
Okay.
But Yeah.
So Mewtwo is Mew is my daughter's favorite.
Oh, you know your Pokemon.
And my son's favorite. He's a Pikachu kid because he likes lightning bolts. That's his thing. He liked Lightning McQueen, and then he liked Pikachu and Raichu. But we are a Poke family, and we spend a lot of time at the vintage Pokemon card cases.
I still have a hard time.
Rick's opened up some Pokemon cards with me before. I wish I would have known that. I would have brought a pack to open with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Next time we'll do it in vintage clothes and Pokemon. Love it.
Perfect.
Okay. So yeah, but I am old enough. Like when I was a little kid,
Old
Grandma would
enough?
bring us to church. I remember the ladies who would wear hats like that to church.
I wear these kinds of hats all the time.
That's really cool.
I don't believe in ever letting something sit on a shelf. I buy it to wear it, but I take good care of them.
I'm a bald guy, so I have to have a hat.
I love it.
Most people don't know like how well hair keeps the sun off your head. So let me see that hat.
This one?
That one.
Are you gonna try it on?
I'm just saying. My
Wait,
grandma,
he can try it on? Yeah. Rick, try that on. I think she just gave
my
you.
grandma that raised me probably owned this hat. I mean, she never lived in Las Vegas or anything, but like something very, very similar.
Put that thing
And
on. I haven't seen you with that much hair since
and
we
I
put a
remember her
toupee
taking
on
these
you.
hats, and there's like a million hat pins that she'd pin into through her hair. I don't have the pins. I put pins.
Come on,
in
put
them.
that on. We haven't seen that
All right.
much hair on you
Actually,
since you wore the toupee.
Hold on a second. There should be a drum roll.
Slide it back a little.
You kind of look like
My
a.
God.
Okay, wait, hold on.
There we go.
No, back.
Little-
Yeah.
Back a little bit.
So it tilts off the back.
Let me see. You
Hold
kind
on,
of
look.
look
Like,
Romanesque.
They tilt like this, like off the back.
Yeah.
All
Off
right.
the back. Wear it
Okay,
properly.
let me see that one right there. Let me see that one. All right.
Wear it
Chum, try it
properly.
on.
My ponytail might have to go. Let's see.
Oh, I don't want to hear excuses.
That's how you
all
wear
right.
a hat.
I love it.
In a competition, who do you think would win with the hat flare right now?
I mean, right now, definitely you, because it's working with the skin tone.
Yeah, you look good.
He's a little pinkish, and there's a lot of pink, but this is working.
I agree with Tiffany 100%.
Yeah.
You should buy that and wear it every day.
It's not for sale. It's not for sale.
I think you will look amazing in this, though.
We set that down.
There we go. All right. It's been amazing having you. Okay. I love everything you're fighting for. We might disagree on some stuff, but I love talking to you about it, and I think it's absolutely amazing what you're doing. And I wish everyone on TikTok was as articulate as you.
I mean, nobody'd follow me if everybody was as good at
Yes,
explaining
yes.
everything as me. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that there's a little room for me in there. But honestly, like when I joined TikTok, I didn't think anybody would care about this. I never could I have imagined like 60 million views or something like that. Like I didn't think anybody would care.
I mean, you seem like a really super smart person, and people like to watch super smart people. I mean, you explain it so everybody on every level can understand it. I think that's really, really cool.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a great time having you here. I do hope to have you back at some point. Rick's very passionate about talking to you, so I appreciate you listening to him.
I mean, so far, I mean, we just started a podcast not that long ago, but this is like one of the most incredible ones because, like, I got to talk to someone about like something I'm really passionate about. I mean, literally, there's no reason. It's so wrong. Some of these huge monopolies. I mean, like, I can go on forever, but it's been amazing having you.
So I just have one last question for you. Is there, before you leave, is there a favorite small business you have maybe that you want to shout out that you love, something like that?
Oh, I honestly just tell people that if you actually want to make a difference, you don't have the money to sue somebody. The best way for us to make a difference in the shoes we stand in is to go support small businesses in your community. The private equity firms don't have them yet, and they need your help to compete. Okay. We have to forfeit convenience. We have to forfeit those small discounts you do by going to Monopolies, and you have to go seek out all your small businesses. I guess today I'll say Painted Ladies Vintage Clothing Shop here in Vegas because it's on the table, and she's amazing. The woman named Zita owns it. Yeah. She was so nice. I bought everything. She's going to be restocking this week, so give her a week, guys. But honestly, just go support small businesses. Find them, look for them. Don't support big monopolies, and that's the easiest way to fight right now.
Well, I mean, I'm a big gun guy. I only go to like little gun shops. I don't go to the big stores. I really, I go to little antique stores all the time because I'm kind of an addict and of like old antiques. I have way too much stuff that I'm ever gonna. It just sits in boxes. But no, I mean, small businesses are. It's the backbone of this country, and you are absolutely amazing for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody can follow me. Like, come on
Yeah,
over to
tell us
TikTok
where to
and
follow you. Tell us where to follow you.
On TikTok and YouTube, I'm at Tiffany Cianci. And on X and on Instagram, I'm the Vino Mom because I was a sommelier in Vegas.
Vino
for 15
Mom.
years.
I love it. Well, Vino Mom.
If you're the Vino Mom, I like when we're done filming here, I'll talk about someone you definitely know that's been my friend forever.
Can't wait.
It's been a pleasure, and we hope to have you back.
Thanks for having
coming.
me on.
This is Pawn After Dark.